Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, happy Tuesday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on The Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, and today you're going to hear someone make the case that there could be a more pro-liberty candidate and governor in the state of Florida. What? Say it ain't so. Blasphemy. No, it's true. And I promise you, we actually have said candidate on today's episode. But before we get there, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to today's sponsor, and that is the one and only Expat Money Show. Head over to briannicholsshow.com/expat, where you can go ahead and not only protect the money you worked so hard to earn from ambulance-chasing lawyers, nefarious creditors, and greedy, unjust governments. How? Well, I'll tell you how, because we're going to be working with our good friend, Mikkel Thorup, who's going to be going through not just helping people like you invest internationally, secure second passports and residencies, eliminate your tax bill, and take advantage of offshore structures so you can travel the world freely and never have to worry about money again. But he's also hosting the Expat Money Summit. It's going to be 5 days, 30 expert speakers. And if you head over to briannicholsshow.com/expat, you can grab your free tickets for this event November 7th through November 11th. And oh, by the way, there's a pretty important keynote speaker, the one and only former Congressman Ron Paul. He will be joining the Expat Money Summit. So again, head to briannicholsshow.com and grab your free tickets today. All right, folks. So I teased it there at the intro. Yeah, we have a gentleman joining the program today who not only thinks there could be a more pro-liberty candidate and pro-liberty governor in the state of Florida, but he thinks it might be him. Hector Roos, welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to this conversation. And for sure, want to hear your case, man, because I'm coming from Philadelphia, PA. I moved out to Indiana, settled out here over the past 7 months or so. But I lived in Philly for 7 years, and I saw the last 2 of it be a complete, something show. And it was mostly, and I say mostly, it was almost entirely due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing response from the local governments, in that case, the city of Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania. Hey, Florida was looking pretty good to me. But before we get there, let's go ahead and introduce you to the Brian Nichols Show audience. Hector, who are you, and why are you running for governor down in Florida as a big L libertarian?
Well, just to say a few words about myself first, I caught the political bug, about 15 years ago through the Ron Paul campaigns. So yes, I was one of those guys that eventually just joined the Libertarian Party, really identified with people who want basically basic freedoms respected. And I was sick and tired of just the, Democrats on one side saying they wanted to support civil rights and then working against them, and Republicans saying they were for economic rights and property rights and then working against those too, especially on taxes. And for me, I've honed my craft. I've helped out over almost 100 campaigns in and around the state of Florida, from statewide to Congress to even the local city councils and commissions. And frankly, we libertarians, particularly in Florida, need to stand up and take a stand of what being a libertarian actually means. Because what we have here is a governor who's basically allowed the media, the same media that promoted Trump for so many years, declare him a libertarian. I don't know if anybody saw the New Yorker magazine, but certainly he has taken on that role of he is the most libertarian governor in America, and it's an absolute falsehood that needs to be corrected. And the best way of doing this is challenging him to office. I mean, basically, I really call him one of the worst, actually, governors on COVID in America. People who may forget that Florida did have a lockdown. He did side with Fauci. He did say that there were some people who basically were not non-essential people, and they couldn't work to feed their families. And frankly, Florida had, by the beginning of the lockdowns or toward the middle of the lockdowns, Florida was reporting the 4th biggest losses of small businesses in America. For the most part, we also have a big problem in terms of our taxes and in terms of our civil rights and in Florida. And that's not going away anytime soon by simply voting the same way we've always voted for. Another way of saying it is that I like to say this is that we actually had a state of emergency declared by the governor single-handedly for 475 days. So that means that for 475 days, the governor was able to write as many checks as he wanted, no oversight, no accountability, and he did that to the tune of billions of dollars. And a lot of other states did the same thing. But the difference is that we ended up with a record-breaking surplus in Florida, but meanwhile our taxes across the board went up. So why is it that we have this surplus in Florida while our taxes are going up in measures of never before? I mean, these are people. Our legislature's been out to lunch for years at this point, and filling in the vacuum is a governor who's just doing pay to play at this point with whoever steps up to help him and help his career in moving forward. We know he's going to run for president in just another 2 years, should he win re-election now. And honestly, we need to set a standard of what liberty really means and what it looks like on a policy perspective. And what do I stand for? I stand for actually eliminating the property tax. I think it's horrendous what we have in Florida. We actually we are essentially in the top 10 of most expensive states to live in, just based on property taxes alone, because our average income in Florida is actually about $52,000. That means that with respect to if you live in Philadelphia or if you live in New York or California, where the salaries are much higher, they can actually pay for the higher level taxation they have there. Here in Florida, we do not. So people are basically losing their homes on the fact that we have inflation going up, which is raising the value of our homes, which then increases the net taxes, and then on top of that, we have things that are required in Florida because we're in a hurricane prone zone. So we have property insurances that also add considerable amount of money of living expenses that are basically making a lot of people homeless. We saw this in the last major recession, and we're seeing it now, that people are starting to feel the crunch. It's not just gasoline; it's also the cost of living itself. I could go on, but the reality is that we have not seen freedom and liberty in Florida with whichever political party's been in charge, and Floridians are desperate for a change. The voters in the last election actually voted themselves both a expanding property tax exemption, which is a minor exemption, and at the same time a minimum wage. So this is clearly the voters, and they passed that with over 60% of the vote. This is something that the voters really are in a desperate situation, and regardless if it's DeSantis or just the general malaise of the political establishment, they're just totally out to lunch and moving on to the next thing. And that's really why I'm running. I think people deserve a choice. I think we haven't had a libertarian on the ballot in Florida for governor in a number of years at this point. And last time, we made the difference, and we're one of the few states that actually has libertarian that reaches the ballot, and we beat the spread every time. If you know of what happened in Georgia last election cycle, this is something that actually is proven that libertarians can do. We do have the power to essentially, beat the spread and make a difference in terms of who gets elected in November.
So let me ask you this then. Let's just say Ron DeSantis loses, right? Let's just say he loses because you played spoiler. How dare you? I know the word spoiler, right? And all of a sudden you have a Democrat. I think it's is it Nikki Fried? How do you say her last name?
There's still a primary in the Democratic Party going on.
Okay, isn't she like the favored?
No, it's the former governor of Republican switched to independent and switched to
Chris
Democrat.
Right.
Yeah, he's also running there. This would be his 5th time running for governor.
5th time's a charm.
Yeah, right. Yes. So, and he's winning on the money game, whatever that means.
So let's just go into hypothetical world.
Sure.
Because I lived the real life, and I saw what happened when we had blue state governors, blue city mayors, and no unchecked power whatsoever with COVID, and it was ramped up to 11. I'm going to be going and visiting some people soon in the next couple of weeks, and I know it's going to be the exact same as I left it back in January, still insane and crazy. So looking at Florida, I mean, objectively speaking, and maybe it's me trying to look to beyond libertarian big L success and more towards we're trying to build trust with a voter base. if we play spoiler and we end up putting someone who is absolutely less pro-liberty than Ron DeSantis in office, that it would be a net negative, not just to the state of Florida, but I would say also to the perception of libertarians. Do you hear my point there?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Just to respond to that,
Yeah.
I want to point out that Republicans, generally speaking, have a very bad track record on COVID. You know, like the Democrats, it doesn't matter if there were if there was a Democrat governor or Republican governor. I mean, if I recall correctly, Pennsylvania has a majority Republican legislature. You know, it's one of these many states that do with the Democrat as governor. You can correct me.
I will say though, they did their part, because they did strip Wolf of his executive mandates, executive order overreach, and that was a big deal because he was going to be pushing a lot of the mandates further. I know in particular to like a lot of transit stuff, and then specifics to vaccination stuff. So, I mean, that's a good thing though, right?
Right. So what happens in Florida is especially concerning, where you have Republican dominated legislature. They have a super majority in the legislature in Florida. And the reality is, because there's a Republican governor, they will in place there in Florida, they will not check his superpowers. And he gave himself superpowers for 475 days and continues to exercise the government like it's still, like he still has it. And what do I mean by that? There are real world consequences to this, not just on the tax policy I said, or the property tax, insanity that's happening, but realistically, even on COVID. I mean, this is a government that basically had a two-tier system on COVID response. There were some states, some counties, based on the Governor DeSantis's actual emergency declaration. They all used his declaration to basically a lot of the counties to have freedom that everybody liked and saw, and on the other side, mandates, both masks and vaccine mandates, which in some cases worse than in New York City, because you had to, if you wanted to go to a public hospital, you were required to be vaccinated, even if you were unconscious. In order to actually receive you, they'd still vaccinate you. Even if you didn't, and even if you wanted to leave the hospital, you still had to. You literally had to get a court order to get a judge to order the hospital that you go, even if your prescribing doctor, your typical doctor, will take care of you. I mean, this was the insanity that was happening in Florida, and people died more of these issues of being, what people said about the guy in New York, of nursing home deaths that were just irresponsible or necessary, to healthy people just being treated with basically products that still would cause them harm. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just seeing we have to look back and see what is our actual measure of success. And a libertarian running for governor, in my case, right, or pretty much in any case, there's two reasons why anybody runs for office generally. One is obviously to win, and the other one is to build, right? To build the case, make the case, and build the movement. I totally perceive this as a movement building exercise. Although I'm in the same situation as like a Jesse Ventura, where I only have to win by plurality of the vote. So technically, I only need 33% plus one in order to beat the Democrat and the Republican. So that's where we're at, and we really need to call to question that either party is good on any individual rights and liberties at this point, and that they are simply all grabbing as much power as they can, and there's no check whatsoever, whether it's from the legislature or even from the opposition Democrats, because they pretty much agree. All you hear out of Florida is what? Some type of cancel culture or some woke right wing or left wing wokeism. That's all you have out of Florida. Nothing about the reality of what people need or asking or demanding. There's nothing about their quality of life. And at the end of the day, I think back to the old 1992 election and Ross Perot's great quote of "It's the economy, stupid," right? People really, really want people. People are desperate in Florida. People are desperate in a lot of places. And what the leadership we have in place now is not cutting it.
So let's talk about now. Granted, right? A lot of my pushback is tactical, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm I'm going to be helping a lot of Big L stuff coming soon to be announced. So we'll keep that below deck for now. But in the meantime, I'm definitely empathize with Big L candidates. I've had many of Big L candidates on, and I guess my approach has been trying to do more from a local level, building trust through getting more people elected in that local level, and then using that as a launching off point to go to higher offices, whether it's assembly, state Senate, and then to the governorship, right? That I would say would be a more effective pathway. I think we're getting some success across the board in, just looking at, we've had a great number of libertarians actually elected to office at a local and state level here over the past few years. So let's keep that up. And I would absolutely encourage you guys in Florida, please keep that up as well. But let's focus back towards why you're also here in the show as a talk about, as you were hinting at, the real issues impacting Floridians. And let's focus on that because, hey, I'm coming again from Philadelphia, PA, and now I'm living in Indiana. And I'm feeling good now getting out of that blue insanity. But all I've looked at Florida has been a COVID bastion, a place to get away from the insanity. That's at least what it's looked like from my perspective. So I've only had good things to think about for you guys. So let's talk about, I guess, some of the negatives, the things that are actually impacting Floridians right now, and what you're going to be bringing as libertarian solutions to help remedy those problems.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like I said, the cost of living is probably the biggest issue in Florida as it is. We have state monopolies on things like insurance, electricity, education, of course. We get our political climate is very one-sided. It doesn't matter who's, what the right-wing talking points or left-wing talking points are. They're all talking about tweaking this or changing this or wanting to confront some culture issue du jour. But the reality is that libertarians have solutions. We don't want to tweak tax rates. We want to end property taxes. We don't want to we don't want to simply give more options for people in the market. We want to eliminate monopolies whenever possible. We don't want to, we have Floridians basically voted for a constitutional referendum that gave rights back to people who were convicted of felonies in the past, and we know it because of the drug war that there've been a lot of felonies, people that were convicted of felonies that had nothing to do with violence, had nothing to do with even property crime. Just a lot of it was possession. And of those systems, we have basically a criminal justice system as a result that only worked for those who can afford the expensive lawyers, and we are a party that supports basically giving a clean slates back to those convicted of victimless and nonviolent crimes. We are about these solutions. When we talk about, we are the only party actually confronting inflation, not by spending more of our own money that's based on debt, but really talking about things like cryptocurrencies, like establishing a Bitcoin standard in Florida that people can actually start transacting in and legally start remitting payments to the state based on that on cryptocurrency. And this is the future. Honestly, libertarians are always up here, looking forward, looking to the future in a very positive direction. We know that we have a crumbling monetary system in the United States. It touches everything because everything's denominated in U.S. dollars. Even our time, our employment is denominated in U.S. dollars. And once we start getting away from that standard and able to transact in transparency with money that's transparent, that we can see how that's not manipulated behind closed doors, we will begin to enjoy more freedoms and more productivity and certainly more wealth creation than ever before. And I think, I say that as part of, running for governor of Florida, because we're at a point right now that this has become such an overwhelming issue for everyone that the states now have to step up. They have to step up on a lot of these issues. We can't rely on the federal government anymore, especially on things like insurance. Property insurance is a big issue. Flood insurance is another. If you Philadelphia, obviously is on the coast or on water, and I'm sure there's every community that's on the water faces these issues and these discussions. We have an antiquated system of state in Florida, particularly. I'm sure this is true everywhere else though. But we have an antiquated system of a building code that is set to basically one size fits all. But we have everything from coastlines to islands to not mountainous, but we have hilly areas in Florida. I mean, the idea is that we actually have to push the envelope of what is acceptable dialogue, political dialogue in the state. and in this country. We definitely serve that purpose, and we have to make people upset that the politicians are essentially ignoring the issues, even on a conservative basis. They even basically saying, "Oh, we'll fix it, we'll tweak it." They're not even doing that anymore at this point. So we have to go from abandoning the idea of tweaking to go all the way and say just something new. And that's what we are. We represent the new ideas, and that people matter, because that's what our politicians are communicating to us, especially since the pandemic. That they think that people are non-essential.
Yeah, I remember sitting there and listening to that. It was Tom Wolfe saying, "Yeah, we're going to have people who are essential and non-essential workers," and that kind of freaked me out. And I guess I didn't really think about the fact that that was also a conversation down in Florida as well. So I guess context is important, but I would also remind folks too that the context of folks who were in those blue cities.
Sure.
Hard to forget, right? Like, I mean, I know not only did it really ruin a lot of businesses, it ruined a lot of relationships, friendships. It's been incredibly painful to see how the really it's a hive mind and how quickly it consumed a city like Philadelphia. And you see it all across the United States, especially in these very blue areas. And it was very disappointing to see that take place, especially when you yourself are experiencing, and I say that raising my hand here, friendships that you had for decades all of a sudden just like completely changed because of how they looked at the issue. So I guess getting out and going to an area where I'm more surrounded to people who are more like-minded and actually share some values and morals, and not just beyond shared experiences, but actually shared goals. That's been nice. And I guess to your point, being in Florida, is that you're looking for that too, but it's just been the different hive mind. And I think that's important for us to always get out of our bubbles, to talk to your average person, to make sure we're actually, what's the expression, touch grass, go talk to people. Don't think what you're seeing online is real life all the time. Give yourself the opportunity to have your mind change and to hear other people's perspectives. It's important to go in and be eternally curious. Oh my goodness, don't we talk about that when we're talking about sales, folks? Yeah, how about that? So, all right, Hector, unfortunately, we are already hard pressed for time. So that being said, two things here to wrap up the episode. One, please go ahead and give us a shout in terms of where folks can go ahead, find you to continue this conversation. But also number two, please go ahead and give us your final thoughts for the audience today.
Well, you can find me anywhere on Roos for Florida, right here, Roos for Florida. I'm on all social medias or .com. You can find me there. But as a parting thought, we all experienced an immense trauma in the lockdowns, in the pandemic, some more than others, and that's absolutely valid. That's absolutely true. It doesn't I'm not trying to take away anything of what anybody's felt or experienced, and a lot of people who have moved to Florida, who from states who had a lot worse. I'm super sympathetic to them. I understand that they're coming from a situation that was horrific, and coming to Florida, honestly, some people in Florida did have very similar experiences, but I will tell you, clearly wasn't as bad in the totality, especially in some places where they lived. Sometimes some people weren't even touched. But the reality is that at this point, it's not just a COVID regime. We have to move past the trauma and look at the future. We have government that still wants to pretend to be the co-parents, right? We have basically our fundamental rights, whether it's self-defense or the idea of medical freedom. These things are still under threat, and this doesn't stop just because COVID or the pandemic is basically over, or is it really? Because we hear the next one coming up. So we need Libertarian in office. We need a Libertarian running anywhere we can. We have very easy ballot access in Florida, and it would have been a shame if we didn't have a candidate confronting what the media has painted as the next Donald Trump or the next potential president of the United States. And I'm glad to be there. I'm here as a servant for the cause. I'm a soldier for the mission, for the movement. And you can find me here at Roos for Florida. And I really appreciate, Brian, for you to have me and for your listeners to continue to have this conversation here. You can learn more about me, talk to me, or donate to my campaign at roosforflorida.com. Thank you.
All right, folks. We'll make sure we include all those links in the show notes. And for you podcast audio listener, all you got to do is click the artwork in your podcast catcher. It'll bring you right over to briannicholsshow.com, where you can find today's entire episode, all of these social media links and other links that Hector outlined there. And also, you can find the entire transcript of today's episode. And also, you will find the direct link to the YouTube version of the program. Head over there. Make sure you go ahead, hit that subscribe button and little notification bell. And oh, by the way, a little housekeeping, folks. Yeah, I'm going to be out and about over the next few weeks. So we're going to have a little bit different of a schedule. I mean, yeah, we're still going to have our shows released, but likely they're going to be a lot of micro episodes. So be prepared for that as we're going forward over the next few days. But don't worry, as we kick off August, I'll be right there rocking and rolling again. And I'll be starting the week off heading out to Florida, Hector. I'll be down in your neck of the woods visiting Young Americans for Liberty Revolution 2022. So, folks, make sure, hey, we just had, and actually that was yesterday's episode, Brandon Williamson, he joined us from Young Americans for Liberty talking about the amazing hero 22-year-old who took down that madman here in Indiana at that mall. And by the way, did you hear the new news? 8 out of his 10 shots that he took on the guy that was getting ready to do the mass shooting, he hit them within 15 seconds at 40 yards. That is incredible. And by the way, that kid ended up saving hundreds of lives. If you missed that episode, folks, don't worry. I'll include that right for you here. If you're on the YouTube, I'll include that below. And I'll see you over there. But with that being said, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Libertarian gubernatorial candidate in Florida, Hector Roos. Say that 10 times fast. We'll see you tomorrow.
For listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.